When it comes to buying a car, there's one question you have to ask yourself before you even start looking at make and model is how much can I afford? This is a problem that I see every day working in a financial institution. A lot of people will buy vehicles that they cannot afford by any means. And of course, they're carpool for a considerable amount of time. If anything should happen to it, unfortunately, the cost to cover repairs is really sacrificed at that point, or the maintenance for vehicles are the exact same. As we continue to see prices just really skyrocket for vehicles, how much car can you really afford? Today's video, we're going to be breaking it down and really going with a 24-10 rule. Now, this is very interesting because, again, working in a financial institution that does a lot of auto loans, I very rarely ever see anyone that can follow this rule. And of course, the 20-40-10 rule, we're going to break it down a little bit. So the 20%, which is the first part of this, is 20% of a down payment. When you start thinking of the average price of a car right around $50,000, that is a big chunk that you're putting down on a vehicle. If you have this amount, of course, it's going to have not only a massive impact on your payment because you are putting 20% of this down. So essentially, if you're buying a $20,000 car, let's say it's a used auto loan, you need to put around $4,000 down to stay at that 20%. Now, of course, this is going to offset the big loss we see from depreciation. As we continue to see the prices of cars, like I had said, continue to increase, depreciation has exponentially increased as well, meaning that, let's say, for instance, you're buying a $100,000 car, you're driving it off the lot, chances are you're going to see a 15 to 25% depreciation in that vehicle just driving it off the lot. If you remember historically, it was usually about 10%, maybe 15%. But again, as the price of vehicles exponentially increase, they are not holding their value. Now, also, I have seen loans that are going for an incredible amount of time just to make these expensive vehicles affordable. And of course, this is putting no money down. In a very rare situation, do I see an individual that is actually coming with putting money down or making a payment and really knowing exactly what they need when they come in to a financial institution, knowing where their credit is, knowing where their rate is. Now, the second one of this is the 4, which is 4-year term or less. Now, again, for a majority of individuals, car really ranges can be 3 years, and I have seen them up to, that's right, 10 years on an automobile. Being at a credit union, we do them at 7 years. I have seen other credit unions do 8 and 9, and I have seen some institutions that are borrowing over $100,000 on a vehicle that are doing 10 years. Now, the chances are your vehicle will not last for those full 10 years, which I think is kind of incredible. And also, you do have to remember, if you're spreading out your vehicle loan for 10 years, depreciation is going to eat up an insane amount of that vehicle, meaning, God forbid, anything happens to it, if it gets totaled, if it's lost, if it's stolen, if anything happens to it, chances are you're going to be owing a lot of money on that vehicle because of the extended term. And again, this is really breaking it down onto making vehicles affordable. As the prices continue to exponentially increase, they have to extend the term to make the payment affordable that people can actually fall into. And of course, the final one of this is the 10%. So 10% of your monthly income on your car expenses. So again, when you think of this, 10% of the monthly budget should be on your car expenses. So this is the last component. This is the cost of owning your car. This, of course, covers the maintenance. It covers the gas. It covers the insurance. When you start building this in, it's very interesting to see. And unfortunately, how many times people cannot afford the car that they're driving in. So we're going to go ahead and do a 10 to 15% rule for how much to spend, kind of based on your salary, based on how much vehicle you can afford. Now, based on the 10% to 15% rule, this is where it gets really interesting, and really use this in relationship to how much you're spending on your current vehicle. So the general rule is using 10 to 15% of your income, which of course includes a lot more than just your payment. When we start looking at the total cost of a car, when you start looking at your monthly budget, you have to do the car payment, you have to do your gas, you have to do the maintenance expenses, you have to do the insurance. There's a lot of things that a lot of people do not realize when it goes above and beyond on the cost of actually owning a car. So looking at an annual salary of around $30,000, your 10 to 15% for your car budget is $3,000 to $4,500. And that will drop your monthly budget at about $250 to $375. Again, when you factor in those 4 things, your car payment, your insurance, your gas, and your maintenance cost, that is roughly how much it is going to cost you on a monthly basis based on that $30,000 salary. Now, of course, if we bump this up to $50,000, now you're looking at the $5,000 to the $7,500 range, which puts your monthly budget around $417 to $625, which is a good range to have the vehicle in. And again, a lot of people do base this on car payment alone, and that is where the mistake happens. If you're running, let's say, a $50,000 salary, you have a $625 car payment, which a lot of people unfortunately do have. Then you start tacking on gas, then you put in insurance, then you put in maintenance costs. When you buckle everything else in there, you're probably spending around $750, $800 a month just to have that vehicle on a monthly basis. Now, when we get up to an annual salary of around $80,000, you're looking for the $8,000 to $12,000 range, which of course monthly budget is going to be $667 to $1,000. Now, also remember that this is based on 20% down. This is also only based on 4 years. If you start doing the exponential factor, taking it to 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, your payment is going to drop a ton, but that is not what we're looking for in these examples. Then, of course, an annual salary of $100,000, you guessed it, 10 to 15%, $10,000 to $15,000, which puts your monthly budget at $833 to about $1,250 for that monthly budget. Now, of course, when you start looking at what people are actually spending, they're running about 20 to 25% of their monthly budget is on their vehicle and just on their vehicle, which means that, of course, there are going to have to be a lot of different adjustments when it comes to the budget. So what kind of cars can you afford on your salary? And of course, looking at a $40,000 salary, so spending about $10,000, you're probably shopping in the 2012 to about the 2016, maybe 2018 range for some used vehicles. Unfortunately, you're going to be kind of priced out of the new vehicle market. And looking at that, new vehicle market is about $46,000. So if you think of an individual that's earning $40,000, then they're putting out $40,000 for a vehicle that they're buying. I know even extended over 5 years, you're going to be eating up a big chunk of your salary with the vehicle that you have. Then when you start looking at the $70,000 range, this is looking at an MSRP of about 36 to 40K. This could also include a couple of the newer vehicles, maybe not the top end, or even getting some of the higher end used vehicles. And for me personally, I'm going to give you my rundown what I do after this video. So let's go ahead and continue. What car can you afford with a $100,000 salary? That is right. Your 10 to 15% rule spends you at about a $65,000 MSRP. So most of this, you're going to be looking at some newer vehicles, possibly some used vehicles if you're looking to get into higher end used vehicles. And of course, you have to pay attention to, number one, what is going to be the price of insurance? What is your gas cost going to be depending on how much you drive? And where essentially can you get a vehicle cheaper? Can you buy as a used vehicle versus a new vehicle? Like we said before, with the new vehicle prices, it has gotten kind of astronomical on how expensive they are, which is kind of crazy because, again, the depreciation on here is very, very high. And of course, for me personally, we drive used vehicles. Right now, we have 2017 vehicles, which means by my calculation, they're about 7 years old at this point, still in a lot of working condition. And essentially, being a financial counselor, we got our vehicles, we paid them off in about 1.5 years. So taking and really expediting Dave Ramsey style, putting everything that we can into the vehicles, paying them off in about 1.5 years. So if I have a vehicle that I've had for 7 going on 8 years, paid off in 1.5 years, I have had an incredible amount of time. I mean, we're talking 5 to 6 years of absolutely 100% no car payments, which of course, if you've checked out some of my investing videos, that is the way that I can exponentially, really save and invest a lot of money. I have the ability to use a lot of my income and retain a lot of my income because at this point, short of having our house payment, we are completely and 100% debt free. And of course, guys, if you're looking at some of the used car market, there are a ton of places that are highly competitive to go ahead and get into that used car market. And really overspending, you have to think, what exactly are you using your car for? And this is a wake-up call, I feel, for a lot of people. When you look at, hey, from where I drive to where I work, I'm about 2.5 miles. Do I need a $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 car to drive 2.5 miles every single day? I know there's a lot of luxuries, there's a lot of upgrades, there's a lot of super nice cars out there, but they always come with a very high price tag. And of course, the more bells and whistles that it comes with, it is going to come with a price tag. And also that can also mean higher insurance when it comes to being able to insure the vehicle that you're purchasing. So guys, that is going to do it for today's video. Let me know what you guys think about the 24/10 rule. And honestly, this is something that I'm going to share with my team, because ultimately, if a lot of people follow this, I feel like the car prices would have to come down dramatically. Because essentially, when I think of, the big three automakers, when I think of Tesla, is there's a point where, let's say with Tesla, for instance, where the company hasn't been doing very well. They haven't been selling a lot of cars. They have done 9 price reductions. I believe that's over the last 2 years with the EV Teslas that they have. And the reason is they almost priced themselves completely out of the market. When you start looking at cars that are 70, 80, 90, $100,000, majority of individuals, especially in a higher rate environment like what we see, cannot afford those vehicles in their entirety. If people stuck to this 20-40-10 rule, I feel like a lot of people wouldn't be as in jeopardy with their car payments. I have seen car payments that are ranging from, $600, $1,000, $1,500. I've even seen them in the $2,000 range. I've seen them in the $3,000 range, depending on exactly what they're borrowing for. And of course, we're talking about some more of the high-end vehicles, but it just gets exponentially more expensive as you continue to borrow more. So again, guys, that is going to do it for today's video. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. And as always, thank you guys for watching.